Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Wilds War Cry. My name is Steven Wilds, and this has been a busy week in wrestling. First off, I've been talking a lot about TNA, so I'm not going to say much about the show, except they put on a really good episode this week. I am, however, going to mention that if this news about Bully Ray leaving TNA, it looks like it's true. It makes me kind of sad, and that's just because he has been doing a wonderful job there. I really hope wherever he's going, whether it's, I kind of don't see it being the WWE for some reason, but if it is, awesome. If he's going somewhere else, I hope it's somewhere I can watch him because I'd like to see more of his work. Wherever he goes, though, I wish him the best. NXT had a really good show as well with some great tag team action, and if you missed the Neville vs. Breeze match at the end, it was really good. I knew the kind of false ending was coming, and there was going to be interference, so it didn't bother me that much, and all in all, it was a really good match. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with this. NXT, as I discussed with a couple of people this week, is just still one of my favorite shows to actually watch. It's one of the few I put first in my queue whenever it comes out, as far as wrestling programming, so I recommend it highly. If you're not watching it, you're really missing out. SmackDown had a really good match with Ambrose and Cesaro, but the rest of the episode was just pretty normal. One of the main things we're going to be talking about, of course, is SummerSlam, and SummerSlam was an eventful night of title changes. It also is probably the WWE pay-per-view that I've enjoyed the most in recent memory. We had a really awesome IC title match between Miz and Ziggler. I was really shocked that Ziggler won. Happy, but shocked. But also a little miffed because it threw off my predictions. I was doing really well in the prediction games with the WNS writers group, and bunch of people threw off my predictions. Anyway, this was a really good match. I really hope people stop saying The Miz can't wrestle. I think matches like this show that he can wrestle. He does have the most useless figure 4, and if that's what you mean by he can't wrestle, I will agree with that. Fine. Paige versus AJ Lee for the women's title was yet another surprise, but not as much of one because I even suggested a couple videos back that they trade the title back and forth a little bit. I hope it's not for the reason that's being reported. A lot of rumors are going around that AJ is probably not going to stick with the company for very much longer. I kind of hope she does. And I would really feel bad if this was over something stupid like CM Punk. You know, I don't know. That match had some really fun spots. I like how both girls are kind of going to the crazy. It's almost like seeing who's the craziest, and boy did they ever continue that on Raw. That match felt really kind of short. I want to see more. WWE, you're finally doing something right with the women's division that I think a lot of people really want to see. Keep at it. Do well with it. Rusev versus Swagger was the other thing that really threw off my prediction game. I thought it was time for Swagger to get a victory. Nope, I guess it doesn't matter what I thought because it didn't happen, and it really seemed weird. But I will say it was entertaining because that's the weakest I've ever seen Rusev look. So I was rooting for Jack Swagger. I like Jack Swagger overall, but I was really rooting for him this time. And I'll admit, I thought he was going to pull out the victory. But what they ended up doing on Raw with Mark Henry was really cool. But where do you go with Swagger now? I don't know. I'm so confused right now. But I'm liking it. It's good stuff. It's really confusing. If you aren't aware by this point, Ambrose vs. Rollins is pure gold. They made a lumberjack match, which is a hard match to keep interesting. They made a lumberjack match fun. It was entertaining. There were some really good spots. I love the whole series with them going into the crowd. That was really good. I'm not sure about if the Lumberjacks knew exactly what their job was. Seemed like it took them a minute to get a hold of that, but highly entertaining match. And their match on Raw, that whole segment, I'm probably going to mention it again because it was just that awesome. Jericho versus Wyatt, I knew Wyatt needed a victory, and I think from what I've been reading, they're going to have at least one more match, and I really hope that Bray Wyatt is the victor in the series as a whole. It'll be their rubber match. You know, it'll be great. I love Jericho's new entrance. The new jacket seems like a very unnecessary upgrade, but whatever. We'll go with it, right? It was a decent match with a really good finish, though. I enjoyed it. I know some people like Vicky Earls and a few other people were saying, oh, it's time to end this feud, but I'm enjoying it. I think one more match is what's needed. Now, if it goes too much further past that, which it won't, it wouldn't be that great, but one more would be good. Brie versus Stephanie McMahon probably had the most build towards SummerSlam. And that's really odd to say when you think about it. And I know that some people might disagree with that, but if you go back and really watch, Brie versus Stephanie had the most interesting and probably the best build up to their rivalry. It had history behind it. They just did a lot right. They hit a lot of the keynotes. And I really hope that the whole adultery storyline is going to get quashed soon. It needs to. It needs to be dealt with and done, or else, yes, I'll agree, we're going to have another Claire Lynch situation, and nobody wants that. This match was honestly better than I thought it was going to be, really. It made the betrayal interesting, because everyone saw it coming from a mile away, but the match was so good, and the build-up was so good that it didn't bother me. I didn't care that I saw it coming, you know? Reigns versus Orton was a match that took a while to get started. There was some good spots. That mid-hair RKO, really, I popped for that. It had a pretty decent ending, too. And I'm not saying, I don't know what they're going to do with that, if they're going to continue doing Reigns versus Orton. But they need to, there's something missing from this. And I hope they figure out what that is and kind of add that element. But the match wasn't bad. And I think a lot of people, I saw them say that, this kind of proves Reigns isn't ready. And I agree with that. I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready for the title spot yet. It's too early. But I don't think he needs as much more as some people are saying. He's got it. He just needs more training, more time, more seasoning. Cena versus Lesnar was the final match, and that was a brutal, sloppy beatdown. But I think it was exactly what was needed. Cena really, I love John Cena as a wrestler, but he needed to be knocked down a peg. Superman needs his kryptonite. He needs to get his ass whooped every now and then to remind you why you need to root for him. Because if he always wins, there's no reason to bother rooting for him. You know he's going to win. And I think Cena did the job. He knew what had to be done. They gave Lesnar the biggest rub that they could have by letting him defeat. And it was the Undertaker's decision. Undertaker gave him this giant rub, and the company went with it. And now Cena's adding to that by having him just come in and dominate him. It just seems really odd with the 2012 victory of John Cena over Brock Lesnar, and I bet now the company's really kind of wondering, why did we do that? Just sitting there scratching their heads. But there were good points in this match, but this wasn't what I would call a good match. It was barely a match. It didn't need to be, though. This was more of a story. This was more for show. The biggest problem is, of course, that using something like this probably shouldn't have been the last thing on your pay-per-view. I don't know. It needed a better ending. It needed to actually throw in some technicality and some mechanics to that last bit of the match. And I love the 16 suplexes and everything like that, but the ending just felt like it just kind of dropped. I don't know. This is how you build a dominant champion, though. Like Brock Lesnar said, I'm a mercenary. And I am a mercenary, Steven. I'm kind of like a word mercenary. And I'm telling you that this needed to happen. The interesting thing is going to be now that we have built this dominant beast, who can take him down? How do we use him? And that's important. And they need to capitalize. And I hate to say it, but they're probably not going to do it correct, but one can hope. Raw was really good. This was actually a good 48 hours of wrestling. No, I take it back. This has actually been a good week for wrestling, and I was really I want to get excited for Mark Henry and Big Show, but I feel like we've been here before, and I'm not sure what's going on. But I'm interested in anything that will build up the tag team division again, and I now have this idea of the Big Show, Mark Henry, the Wyatt family, the Usos, and the Dust Brothers, as I will call them, all in this massive feud, back and forth, like just big jumble of a feud. It could be messy, it could be bad, I understand, but hear me out. The Dust Brothers, Stardust and Goldust, they have had some good matches. The Dust Brothers, as I will refer to them now, they had a really good match against the actual tag team champs, and I think the current champs, the Usos, are great. But I want to see somebody else get a chance, and we're building up good teams. We're doing it right. So the best segment of the night was, of course, with Ambrose and Rollins, where he dumps the bucket of ice water on him and says, "What? It's for charity," and then just pops him in the face with the bucket. I laughed way too much at that. The women's match between Paige and Natalya was actually pretty good. Like I said, they need to build this up more. It's really good. I actually like Natty's new gear. looked pretty cool, and she looked good in there. I'd like to see Natalya get a push. Maybe that's who they'll push up if something does happen to AJ. I don't know. What was The Miz wearing? And I know they questioned this on the show, but someone on Twitter, I want to say it was Steven Larson, don't quote me on that though, called it a napkin. And I guess that is like the most appropriate thing to call it until I figure something else out. Cesaro had a win against Swagger, and I'm glad that Cesaro won, but are we just going to bury Swagger again? I don't know. With the thing with Bo coming out at the end, maybe he'll go back to being a heel. I'm not sure. That's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. The 6-man tag was decent. There was some decent spots in it. But what really stole the show was, of course, the Ambrose and Rollins segment at the end. It was nice. It was brutal. It did a lot. I really like these two right now. I am a huge Dean Ambrose fan. And one of the things that someone pointed out that I said early on was that I was the most worried about Ambrose being able to do something on his own, not because of his ability, but because WWE not knowing what to do with him. So far, what they figured out how to do with him is to let him get his ass beat a lot, and it makes him popular. But he looks good in the ring, he does well. So I'm really hoping that once this feud is over, which I'm not wanting it to end right now, trust me, but once the Rollins-Ambrose feud is over, I really hope they give him something good to do. This man could be amazing. So just going to throw that out there. All in all, like I said, an amazing week for wrestling, but my question to you, my listeners for this week is, of course, who do you want to see take the belts off of Brock Lesnar? Well, belt now, excuse me. So who do you want to see take the title off Brock Lesnar? Whether it's coming up at, Night of Champions, whether it's at the Royal Rumble, or whether it's at WrestleMania, what superstar would you actually like to see them build up to actually conquer the Beast? If you have any questions, comments, or just want to talk to me in general about wrestling stuff, you can find me on Twitter at Stephen Wilds. You can leave comments on the website, that's WNS Wrestling News Source, or you can leave them here on YouTube. Till next time, this has been the Wilds War Cry.